guys, welcome back to our episode 7 for MedBoys. Today we have a special episode on an organization that Nimit, Rushil, and I started. It's called Blankets for TO. We wanted to keep this episode as a more of a personal episode since we've been bringing so many guests to our episode. So I felt like this would be like a personal episode for us. We started this organization in our first year of university and to help the homeless people in Toronto specifically, which is why it's called Blankets for Toronto. Does someone want to explain how we started? Nimit or Rushil?
So we actually started back in like high school. It was just like something because we all volunteered at a hospital, the Centenary Hospital. So one day we were just like thinking of ideas of like how we can give back to the community because we've all like experienced a lot of like problems in our community, like especially regarding homeless people. So we're like, you know what? Like, let's try and like do something. Just try and do something about it. At least that's my personal experience of what we thought of that.
Yeah, and I remember very specifically that we saw a newspaper article where a man had died outside a bus shelter because it was around negative 20 degrees outside. And that really resonated with us because we thought that that shouldn't happen in a place like Canada.
Yeah, and even for me personally, when I used to volunteer at the Ridge Valley Centenary Hospital, I also used to volunteer at the reception desk, and there would be a lot of people who came to the hospital to find shelter, and I felt like I could do something to help the homeless in Toronto.
Yeah, and even in our episode with Tushant, he talked about hypochondriacs and how people are still trying to get into the hospital because they can't sleep. So it's an ongoing problem.
Yeah, and the hospitals can't really do anything about it because, of course, they need the beds for something else. So it has been a big problem, even in a city like Toronto, which is why we started this organization.
And I actually want to speak more about like why we chose the name. And it's quite ironic because like our whole organization is based on giving out blankets. Eventually, we did expand to newer horizons like sanitizers, food, and the like. It's just blankets have been essentially a commodity for homeless people because especially during like the winter in Canada, because like I personally despise the winter. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
me
you guys.
too. Me too.
Yeah,
Who do-
honestly, like it's just I don't really like the winter, and I'm sure the homeless people hate it even more because they're essentially on the streets for the entirety of the day. They're freezing, and it's important that we provide them with some sort of insulation or thermal insulation because they can't find a shelter every time. They're very packed up.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention the blankets that we use because that was actually a really big decision that we had to make when we were choosing whether we should do wool or something like that. So we actually use thermal blankets, and they're very light and very durable. So the homeless people they wouldn't get wet when it's snowing outside. They wouldn't get wet when it's raining. The police can also see them much easier. So when it's cold outside, they can take them to the shelters, which is very important. And yeah.
Yeah, so I'll take you guys back to the origin of how this actually started. So, as I mentioned before, we started this in high school. Rushil and I and Nimit, we started this in grade 11 actually, but we just didn't have the right support, so we couldn't move on with the organization. But at UFT, we felt like we were more supported with a team, a proper team to start the organization. In grade 11, we were actually in downtown for a conference, the three of us, and we saw a couple homeless people on the street. And I remember it being the coldest day of the year. It was on CP24 that it was the coldest day of the year, and we still saw a lot of people just sitting in the snow, waiting for people's donations so they could find shelter, which actually motivated us a lot more to do something about this issue.
Do you guys remember the first day our club got approved by the SCSU and by U of T in general? Like I was very happy about it because like that was like the first step to being able to do something.
Yeah, and it took so long. Like we tried for months and months. We had to do a constitution. We had to get it approved by Student Life and then SCSU too.
Yeah, but even through the whole process, it did help us a lot. We learned a lot from this, and I felt like even though we waited 2 years in high school and then we had to wait a couple months in University of Toronto, we still had the right support to help us start an organization in our first year.
What do you think about the monetary support that the university is giving us?
Actually, in terms of that, um, honestly, I understand their reasoning behind not giving clubs like us that much funding. It's because obviously the goal of UTSC and the goal of university organizations in general is to provide students with the maximum benefit of these clubs. So it's just better if those kind of clubs are favored over ours, because our club is not especially geared towards these students. While the secondary aim of our club is to reduce stigma around homeless people, and while that does impact students by a significant amount, we don't necessarily use blankets for the students, of course, right? They're for homeless people. And it's just, yeah, the supplies are not funded by the University of Toronto.
Yeah, so for the people who don't go to University of Toronto and haven't gone through this process, I just wanted to be more specific that when we actually started the organization, we were in the hopes that University of Toronto would provide us some kind of funding, but they made it clear that if the organization wasn't for the students at UTSC directly, they wouldn't give us direct donations. We would only get donations for, such as if we held events, they would give us donations for food and stuff. So we had to actually go out and start fundraisers to get money.
Yeah, and we also had to think of more innovative ways to start getting money. Like we have a membership fee now. We have to so people can join and they get special benefits. And we just held a raffle a few days ago where they could pay and win a bunch of prizes. So I think it also brought out the creative side in us, but it's also a lot more work.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, it makes things a lot more complicated, but at the same time, we're having fun doing it too. Like the raffle was a fun thing to do for us. And even the event that we had after, we had a great turnout, and it was just it's overall like a fun experience. Like I remember the first event that we did, the meet and greet. That was definitely a fun thing to do.
Yeah, Russell, talking about the meet and greet, I would say that meet and greet also made us more confident in what we were doing because we got such a positive response from so many people. I think about 80 or 90 people showed up to our event, and it was just the three of us, three students that just came out of high school, and you have to, with no public speaking experience, and then they're speaking in front of so many people. So at least I know I learned something out of it.
Yeah, and I remember that day specifically because people hadn't started coming in for 5 minutes, and we got really worried because we thought we'd have like a turnout of 5 people, and then they just kept pouring in.
I remember we'd even driven to I think the local pizza to get a few boxes of pizza, and we're like, where's this pizza gonna go? Who's gonna eat it? We can't eat 4 boxes ourselves. Like, it's just, yeah. And then eventually, when those people came in, we were like, oh my god, finally, there's just people. They actually like care about our cause as much as we do, and yeah.
Yeah, I remember telling Russo after the event, even after experiencing everything, I still couldn't believe it. And I told Russo specifically, I'm like, I'm pretty sure they came for the pizza, not for the event. But we still got a positive response after that.
Yeah, and I think we prepared for a while too for that because it's obviously scary if you're standing in front of those many people, and since they knew we were on first year, so they don't take you that seriously either.
Yeah, exactly. And even the preparation we did beforehand by putting up those posters all around UTSC, like that was definitely I definitely learned like a lot of the campuses, like nooks and crannies, like where do I go for this? Where do I go for that?
Just a small note, I'm not sure we were allowed to post all those, but I think they helped a lot because I think that's the main reason everyone came.
But yeah, that was the first year of how we started this organization, and ever since then, it's been, I guess, a journey of us helping the homeless people. And so far, we've given out a lot of blankets to the homeless people. The first blanket donation we did was actually last year, well, last year in December, and then we did another one in January 2020. Sorry, I'm getting confused. This is 2021, but we gave out blankets in December 2019 and then in January 2021. And that specifically, that day was the coldest day of the year again. And we ended up giving up about 50 blankets. within 10 kilometers of range in downtown Toronto.
Yeah, like we've definitely had like a lot of experiences throughout that sort of journey that we had that day. And I mean, a lot of them are not necessarily um the, the greatest, but we definitely did have fun. Other than the fact that, we had to walk inside buildings every 20 minutes because our hands were freezing off.
So you forgot your gloves that day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The
Yeah,
worst.
it's just a different feeling of fulfillment when you actually work that hard. And then you like a lot of the homeless people are very surprised that we like thought that hard and gave them blankets instead of like just passing by them without even looking. So at least it gave them a smile that day. That's all we really want.
Nimit, what do you think about people actually approaching homeless people, or actually the ones in need? Because I know a lot of people are just scared to just go out and give stuff to people. Everyone wants to give out, donate, but they're specifically scared of homeless people for some reason. So what do you have to say about that?
I've talked to, as you know, and as Rushil knows, we've talked to a bunch of our friends even, and we've asked them, what would you do? And a lot of them bring up they might go and buy cigarettes with this money, or they might buy drugs. And see, you never really know because you don't know that person. You don't know what type of life they've lived, what they've gone through, right? So even if you're scared of that, there are still ways to help. Like, for example, instead of giving them just money, you could give them a gift card to McDonald's. And that way they could go straight to McDonald's and get food, and you know they're going to get food. So there are ways to help without being worried about what they're going to do with the money.
And again, to reiterate the fact that these people, when you give them stuff, they're genuinely happy. Like you can feel it, you can see it on their face. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much. It's because like thousands of people walk by them every day without even looking at them so much as giving them a time of their day at all. So it's just, it really makes us happy.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, it was scary for me for my first experience as well. It was back in 2018 when we actually thought of uh, it in high school. It was me and Nimit who went out to give it out to some of the homeless people. And the first one that I gave out was to someone who was sitting with a friend. And I was very scared to approach them. And even when I approached them, they didn't know how to speak English and they didn't know how to communicate uh, with me, or I didn't know how to communicate with them, and they were still very happy. The person almost hugged me, and he shook my hand and he said, "Thank you, bye," and he said bye to me after. So I think that motivated me a lot, and that's how we pushed each other to start an organization in university.
I think since you said it was that hard, right?
Mm.
Also very hard to keep moving on after that because it's very awkward. You don't know how they're going to react. So they might react in a way that you would never expect, like violently or something. Because the truth of the situation is, you never know who's homeless.
Mhm. Yeah, I was mostly scared of the dog. They had a dog, and the dog kept running around me, so I was mostly scared of the dog. But it was a great experience for me in general.
And yeah, to add on to everything that's being said, it's just like a lot of these homeless people, yeah, you don't really know exactly, what's the deal with them. It can work both ways, at the same time, you don't know what they're going to do with the money, but at the same time, it's also a very fearful experience to approach a stranger. And I guess that sort of thing comes with practice and as well as identifying, who's homeless or not. A lot of people, they I guess appear as wearing strange clothes, and you may think, oh my God, this guy is homeless. Let me go help him, but he's not, and that's actually offensive to a lot of people. And I'm sure we're going to be running into this problem many times in the future, but it all comes with practice and experience.
Yeah, Rochelle, I just wanted to address the point where, like, again, we were talking about them spending the money with everyone else. I think for the three of us, our parents have brought us up with the value that we have to give back to the community, and your responsibility is to give back, and then it doesn't matter what they do after you give back. I think that's the same with a lot of people.
Mhm. I mean, specifically to our executive members and our members, when we do train them to go and give out blankets, we specifically told them that if you don't feel safe, or if you feel like they don't feel safe when you're around, the best option is to just leave the blanket there. because we're not trying to get anything back from them. It's just meant to help them. So if you feel like they're sleeping or they're not around, it's best to just leave the blanket there.
Yeah, that's like very true. It's important, you got to prioritize your own safety as well as maximizing how much you can do for them. And that just again comes with experience. And yeah. And honestly, after our first event in I think January, um, we weren't able to do much that after that because, as you all know, 2020 was basically ruined by the pandemic and everything that happened. And that's a massive issue for an organization such as ours that directly deals with going like contact on a contact based thing, going out, giving homeless people blankets. And yeah.
It also took us to like a completely different, interesting journey, I guess, with a lot of ups and downs. Ups as in we got to connect with a lot of people who were distant from us, like people who were living further. We could just meet with them virtually, which we didn't think about, I guess, when uh, everything was in person. But the biggest down factor was that we weren't able to get volunteers who could actually go and give out um, blankets. There were a lot of volunteers who wanted to do that, but we just felt that it was safer to not get volunteers for it because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and one very weird aspect of all of this was we'd selected our executive team right before the pandemic hit. So we hadn't even spent time with them before we were trying to plan everything. So we had to meet with them virtually and get them to trust us and for us to trust them all virtually.
And luckily, things did work out. They're a great team. They've always, stuck by us despite everything that's been going on. I know it's been tough on them, and it's definitely been tough on everyone. But it's amazing that, you know, I'm just surprised by the fact that so many people can like flock to a cause like this, and it really shows that the UTSC community and I guess students in general can be very humanitarian.
Mhm. And it's not just the executive members, all the members that we had before in person they're also very supportive, as in whenever we've had virtual events, they've reposted our stories or helped us in one way or another. We're still receiving donations virtually, um, even though they know that we can't go out in person. They all still trust in us, and they know that we're always giving out donations just like we did virtually. Nimit, do you want to talk about some of the donations that we gave out the past month?
Yeah, the past month has actually been very busy because
Mm.
there was this company called Ontario Medical Supply that actually donated 500 medical masks to us, and we started donating those to shelters nearby. And on top of that, we've had this hand sanitizer donation that's been going on all the way since July, and we've just given them out, and people really need them.
The I felt like the hand sanitizer event was a good idea. We actually gave out about 15 hand sanitizers to each executive member of our team, and the goal was to give out all the hand sanitizers out to the homeless people by the end of the year, and we did so, and we finished it by as 2020 finished.
I also wanted to give a shout out to our exec members, or they'd get really mad at us. So I'm just gonna say thank you, Minnie, Diala, and Valeria, for helping us throughout all this, because it is actually a very big time commitment. And if you're not really into the cause, you're not gonna do a good job.
Do you guys want to talk about some of the things that we've done over the year, some of the events that we've done, aside from just, donating and overall, doing what we want to do?
Yeah, Rushil, I think you should talk about Nassirs event. I think that was our biggest hit.
Yeah, one of our biggest hits, definitely one that really, really put us into the spotlight, at least for a bit. So I'm not sure if you all know him, especially I'm pretty sure all of the UTSC students would know him. He's always been at UTSC. His name is Nassir. He runs Nassir's Hot Dog Gourmet stand right outside the student center. Him being a small business, he's been affected pretty significantly by the pandemic and everything that's been going on, with the closure of small businesses. And as a result, he's been struggling financially. And we just thought it would be a really nice gesture to go out and help him. We ended up taking professional photos for him and really spreading the word about his business. and it did really well. If you look at the analytics for that post, we reached almost 10,000 people with that post. So that really shows how inclusive our community is and how much these small actions can go in terms of promoting people and making the world a better place, to be honest.
Yeah, small businesses took a big hit during the pandemic, and they still are struggling a lot. I was actually at university one day when I saw Nassir, and I remember when it was in person, he would have at least 5 or 6 people in line. I'd be the sixth person always. But now, when I was in the library about 3 or 4 months ago, he he was all alone, and I found out through a couple stories that he was struggling, and he wanted more customers, obviously. So he started a DoorDash and he started Uber Eats. And we all thought about an idea to help this local business that has helped us throughout our university career. So, which is why we made a video, and the video actually reached out to, like Rushil said, about 10,000 people. And when the GoFundMe was started, we actually helped him raise more than $3,000.
Yeah, it was actually around $5,000 from what I
Oh,
remember.
really?
Yeah.
Really?
So, and we're very happy he needed that because the business has been shut down for like 9 or 10 months now, and that's probably just a portion of the of what he's lost throughout this time.
I'm not sure if you and Nimit and Russo, you guys know that, but I gave him a call after everything that happened, and he gave us and our organization so many blessings. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Yeah, that's always a great thing.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason we do it for. Like even when we go to homeless people, that's what they can give us, and that's all we want, right? So when people help us, and then we get to help other people, it's just a very good cycle.
Exactly. And that's just what we're about, to be honest. We're just about, breaking that cycle of being a bystander, to be honest. You should always think about what really can you do to support someone else? Because that is really the greatest happiness, at least from our perspective. It's by seeing someone else happy that puts a smile on your face. And another thing, a couple of other events that we've done, aside from Nasir, we've supported, as Nimit said, homeless shelters. We actually visited one recently. Obviously, with the whole COVID precautions and everything, we were safe about it. We visited Warden Woods Community Center, and we got to meet with their staff. We also got to see where these homeless people live, what they do on a day-to-day basis, and at least in my opinion, it did seem quite what's the word? Quite expansive, I guess, in terms of how many people could fit in their shelter. But again, everything could always be improved, especially because they're a respite site. So that means that they have the least amount of protection, the least amount of funding. So these sort of locations are the most important to support. And we hope to remain in connection with them and promote their safety.
Yeah, I actually wanted to shout out Karen. She's the administrative assistant there, who met up with us and received the donation for the masks. And she also tried her best to show us around the facility. Obviously, we were restricted from going into um, the other rooms, but we got an idea of how the homeless people stay there. And Warden Woods is trying their best to keep everyone safe, and I think it is really good for everyone who is staying there. But we ended up giving out 200 masks to Warden Woods, which were supplied to us from Ontario Medical Supplies.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention that throughout this whole journey, we've gotten a lot of help, and people are generally very nice. Like even when we went to downtown and we couldn't find that many homeless people, the reporter from CP24 told us where to find them. And then the manager here just told us to come in one day, and she showed us everything.
Remember, you wanted to do an interview on CP24, didn't you? You
Yeah.
kept telling me that you wanted to approach them for an interview.
I mean, we weren't that big back then. We hadn't done that much work. I hope we can get to that point one day.
Mhm.
For sure, for sure. It's always a journey of, being better, being bigger, just reaching more people. That's our ultimate goal. We're just trying to reach more people and help more people. And one of the ways that we've tried to do this is through virtual events. As a result of the pandemic, we've been unable to go into university, and it's been quite a bummer. But we've tried to find ways around it through virtual events. A couple of the ones that we've done so far, we've done one back in, I believe it was October. That was our virtual second year meet and greet, and it was quite a lot of fun. We played a popular game Among Us. We got to know a lot of the people that enjoy and want to be part of our organization through party games like Never I've Ever, and it was just overall a fun experience because it's really important to get to know who's supporting you, and who I just love connecting to people like that on a personal level.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention another October event, which was the Halloween of event where we did virtual pumpkin carving, where Namin supposedly won, but his pumpkin wasn't that good. Even though I did a Spider-Man pumpkin, I just think people don't know how to vote these days.
Whoa.
But
No, no, no. I like to say I'm a very creative person. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't know how I got lucky with both the rounds of the Halloween special. But I ended up keeping that pumpkin outside my house for at least 30 days. My parents kept telling me to put it inside, but I kept it outside as an award because I suck at art. So that was my biggest accomplishment.
yeah, I should have stole it.
But anyways, that pumpkin event was one of them. We actually did an event recently in January to, I guess, end off the year of 2020 and start a new year. And we did a collaboration with another club at UTSC, and it was just a fun event where people could come and connect with each other. Because at the end of the day, UTSC has given us the most support, and we want to give back to the university that has given us the support. But yeah, we're just looking to expand at UTSC and hopefully into other universities in the future.
And speaking more to that, what do you guys think we can do with blankets in the future? Where do we see this going?
I think what we've seen this year is that a lot of people are interested, especially our friends from all these different universities. So I think it's very possible that next year we start blankets for TO at these other cities like Hamilton and London and things. It could even be blankets for Hamilton and blankets for London. We could start a whole cause like that.
A lot of people reached out to me personally about asking about Blankets for TO, and they're very interested in joining Blankets for TO. Someone at Guelph messaged me, and someone at McMaster also messaged me, saying that they were very interested in being a part of Blankets for TO. Unfortunately, our reach isn't that big right now. We're still at UTSC, but hopefully in the future, once we get to that point, it'd be amazing to get there. But in terms of virtually, it's still been kind of hard for us, but we're trying our best. In terms of goals, like Nimit mentioned, one of our main goals, even in high school when we were thinking about this, was that we wanted to remove the stigma around homeless people. And the second goal was providing them jobs to the homeless people in Toronto. So going back to the first stigma, which was them taking drugs or buying cigarettes or something, we actually wanted to fight that by starting petitions and stuff. So that's also what we're working on this year. We're contacting offices, like we contacted the MP's office near us to find a petition that we could fight for, to fight the stigma.
Who knows? Maybe even blankets can have their own like homeless shelter one day. Who knows? It's super fun. Honestly, it'd be very like fun. It'd be very reminiscent of what we want to really accomplish with this, and it's to support homeless people, reduce the stigma, and give them jobs. And that's the biggest thing you can do for someone.
Yeah, and with that, I think that's long enough for a discussion on blankets. We could keep going on for hours and hours. We've just spent so much time on this, but we don't want to take up any much more of your time. And we're looking forward to seeing you next time on the MedBoys Podcast. Bye, guys.